Hey, good evening. It's February 7th, 24, excuse me. And what's happening in Dracut, to be honest, we're a new show here.
Yeah.
We have guests tonight, Rebecca Duda and George Solaris, and we'll be having some discussions with them. We're live from high atop DATV studios overlooking
Mill Street.
overlooking Beaver Brook. So glad you could join us, and we'd like you to call in if you can, 978-957-4243. This is a live show, so we would love to talk with you. But let's open it up. Rebecca, how have you been doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me tonight, Phil. Glad to be here. I missed you invited me a few weeks ago, but I was sick with COVID.
I think it was going around, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I was here.
Yep.
That's
I was looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the book I gave you, and
I still haven't read
You
it,
haven't read
George.
it?
I still haven't read it, George. Maybe we'll talk some
I've
sports
got to
tonight.
give you some homework.
Yes, some homework. I have plenty of homework.
Yeah, but our last show was the end of November, and people have been wondering if we get royalties for this, and I said, oh yes. Every show we get the same sort of
same.
royalty as we do for the live show, so we're all set.
Yeah, we get to go to Owen and Ollie's and buy ourselves dinner.
Yep.
That's right.
But George, how have you been?
Good. No complaints. Just working and doing my thing, doing contracts and other legal work. So I'm enjoying myself.
So are you still working? So the company is in Cambridge, but you're still
Correct.
working locally.
I still
and
go to my office, yeah.
kind of
Because
teleworking.
they have a rule where if you have to drive more than an hour and a half to get to work, you don't have to come in all the time.
Yeah, it's more productive for you to stay close.
Absolutely.
and
If I have
get
to give
work.
if I have to give 5 hours in a car between home and back from Cambridge, then they don't get that during the day. So then they know that. So
Yeah,
it's good.
I had worked in Cambridge for a short while.
Oh, did you?
In,
That's
in,
a hike.
in Inman Square.
Ah.
So it was door to door. It was an hour and a half. Grab the commuter rail, then take the Green Line out to Leechmere, and then from Leechmere take a bus out to Inman Square.
Oh.
And talk about running on a schedule.
Yeah.
If you were off by even a minute, it could add an hour to your commute.
And then you beat Charlie on the MTA,
Oh,
right?
it was. I mean, the only blessing was that as far as stress, there was really limited stress because you were just waiting.
Right.
You weren't driving and knuckles white and cars and.
Well,
trying to
that's me when
cut in
I
traffic.
drive in. It's like driving into, you have to go through Somerville to get to Cambridge, and then you get into Cambridge to get to where I have to go in Cambridge. So it takes me 45 minutes sometimes to get to 93 right in Methuen, and then in Medford it backs up.
Yeah.
So it gets to a crawl. It's just a terrible way to live. So I try to avoid
Yeah.
that.
Sometimes it took longer to get out of Lowell
It does.
and
Right.
onto 93 than it did for the
Yeah.
rest of the commute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's brutal getting over that bridge sometimes.
Yeah.
So weather's been pretty nice.
Yes, it has.
And we have Sean Kelly here who will tell us about the upcoming weather. Take it away, Sean.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me on. Here's the forecast for tonight. Temps are going to drop back down into the mid to upper 20s. Winds come out of the north at 5 to 10 miles an hour, so nothing too bad. Then as we head into the day on Thursday, really nice for this time of year. Early February, of course, meridian in the 40s. You have 50 degrees as we head into the afternoon on Thursday. And it's going to feel like that too, especially as we have that sun angle getting a little bit higher now. So we're not in January anymore with mostly sunny conditions. Winds not that bad at 5 to 10 miles an hour. And then as we head into Thursday night, temps are going to drop back down into about near 30 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. Winds coming out of the south at 5 to 10 miles an hour. And then as we head into the day on Friday, I think we're going to start cloudy, and we should get into some sun as we head to the second part of the day on Friday. Winds not that bad, again at 5 to 10 miles an hour coming out of the south. Then as we head into Friday night, temps are going to drop back down into the 30s with mostly cloudy conditions. Winds, again, not too bad at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Here's a look at your exclusive 8-day forecast. So Friday and Saturday being your pick of the week. Saturday, high temps near 60 degrees. We should have some clouds around for Saturday, maybe even perhaps a shower or two for the second part of the day. but we should have some sun as we head into early Saturday morning, it looks like. As we enter Sunday, a very nice day overall too, sun and clouds. And then we're going to watch Monday, Tuesday right now. Could be looking at a chance for another coastal storm with some rain and perhaps some snow, but right now, just mostly cloudy conditions expected. And that is the forecast for now, everyone. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Sean. That was Mill City weather.
Yeah, he does a good job.
Yes, it looks like it's going to be sultry towards the end of the week, which
Yeah.
is nice. Hitting the 50s.
You can't complain, right?
No, no. I just want to call out to our control booth that I'm not seeing that we're on Facebook Live at the moment, so I don't know if you want to jiggle the chain if that's possible, but I'm not seeing it. But well, I guess we'll continue.
Yeah.
And again, it's a live show, so you can give us a call at 978-957-4243. Topic 1. So I recently wrote an article for the Valley Patriot regarding one of my fond little tongue-in-cheek jokes about Dracut. The first of the Constitution of the
Hold it,
United
Phil. Our joke. Thank you.
The Constitution of the United States was never ratified by the town of Dracut. And I kind of we jokingly say that because it seems that if you're not in power, then you get your voice suppressed. And this recently happened over the past 3 months or so, I guess. So the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee has been looking at the zoning bylaws that were last adopted 1985. To put it in perspective, Ronald Reagan was president. And so, I mean, there's always this talk about economic development, and we need to do this, and get things rolling. It's like, well, you're dealing with the same rules that you were dealing with back in 1985. Why do you think you're going to get something different by not changing those, but asking people to come in? I mean, they're not flocking here for a reason. Zoning bylaws are a big reason to that. So about I think a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years ago, they started this process in secret, it seems, of reviewing the zoning bylaws. And they had members of the planning board, zoning board of appeals. I think they had somebody from the health department. Why health gets lumped into it, I'm not sure. And the Board of Selectmen.
I think they asked that question too, didn't they?
I think so.
Why am I here?
So after about 6 months of that, I kind of caught wind of it. And I was talking with one of the members from the planning board, and I said, why aren't you having public participation in that? And honestly, his reply to me was, well, why would we need that? It's like you're dealing with people's treasure, their property, for the most part. And for residentially, you're dealing with their property. This is their one big investment. This is their nest egg. This is what they live for. And you're making regulations that are going to be affecting that. So they should have some sort of voice in it. And I did a lot of pushing to Heather's accolades. She kind of jumped on the bandwagon with that one and said, hey, let's get public participation. They ended up finally getting a member from the public and a couple of alternates. I had applied, and they said no thank you to me, of course, because I had conflicts of interest, according to them. So that's all well and fine. I was attending the meeting anyway, and there was one person there that thanked me, and I said, to be honest, it's not the vote that really matters. It's the voice. It's understanding what we're doing and having the dialogue to make sure we're doing it right. At the end of the day, it's town meeting that votes on these zoning ordinances or bylaws.
And then it goes through for an election too. It goes to general election.
No, not zoning bylaws.
No, not
No,
zoning?
it's just
Oh,
it's passed at town meeting.
That's just bylaws.
That's correct. So the zoning bylaws are passed at town meeting. Typically requires a 2/3 vote, a town meeting unless it's residential, solely residential. Now that only requires a simple majority vote. So in December, and I know this is a long setup, but
That's okay.
It's a very convoluted process, and I think Allison Genest wants to make it that way. So in December, while they're doing their hearing, the chair of this zoning bylaw review committee makes an announcement that he had a conference with Allison Genest as chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Ann Vandal as town manager. Allison Mnuchin, I believe, was brought into it because she is staff for the zoning bylaw review committee, and town council, Attorney DeLuca. And they impressed upon him that he essentially has no right to allow public participation because this is a public meeting and not a public hearing. And the public should have no anticipation that they will be heard at a public meeting. So he's relaying essentially this information. And it may have also been the January meeting. And so many people questioned it on the zoning bylaw review committee. Some of them asked if the town attorney could come to their next meeting so they could ask questions because they're essentially getting this hearsay. Allison Genest informed them that the budget for legal in the town is near capacity, and so she certainly wouldn't authorize having a council come to a meeting and waste money. So no, you have to take it from Allison that this is what is acceptable. So at the end of January 24th, I think it was, they had this tri-board meeting, and I know everybody likes to throw out the tri-board meetings, and somehow it's the gathering of wizards or something. But the first topic on the agenda was public participation, and they had Attorney DeLuca kind of zoom in because I guess no doubt he was told you don't have to be here. And so we're going to have the first segment from that meeting coming up, and this is where Attorney DeLuca tries to emphasize the difference between a public hearing and a public meeting, and the public meeting creates a very limited amount of discussion with the public, if any. And as a matter of fact, if you listen for it, you can hear him say, "I know it sounds crazy." So, Nate, why don't you run that first segment? And the audio from the attorney is kind of soft. I think we've tried to amp it up a little bit so you can hear it, but it was being done through an electronic means because the attorney wasn't there. So, Nate, why don't you run that, please?
Anyway, I'll try to formulate it as a question as best as possible. With regards to something you said with regard about agenda items being noticed, or action items being noticed, is it fair to say that if an item is noticed on the agenda, that it is okay then for the public to participate?
No, not in the context of a public meeting. That would only be true if it were a public hearing on a particular item. And statutorily, public hearings are required, say, for example, on license applications, or certain zoning or planning hearings. Those are items specifically requiring public hearings. In general, the meetings that are held by the zoning board, the zoning bylaw review committee are public meetings. The public is invited to attend and listen, and the participation unfortunately is limited to those agenda items where their input is specifically required or invited.
Okay.
So I know it sounds crazy, but for regular people who clearly want to meet in a community setting and exchange ideas, I can only tell you what the open meeting law requires is that participation be constrained in the context of a public meeting, so that it doesn't become kind of free-for-all, where the public is now interfering with the public meeting process. That's the risk. Now, I know that's not typically the case, but just in terms of drawing some bright lines here, a public meeting is really a business meeting among committee members. The public participation in those meetings is limited.
Right.
Unless it's noticed as a public hearing, the meeting is really to be conducted among the members themselves.
I don't know, they show enough.
So, talk about tap dancing all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, public meeting, I understand the difference. I've been on the planning board for 14 years. I've been on a number of different boards, all that had public hearings and public meetings, and I understand. And I can understand that, especially at a planning board meeting or a zoning board of appeals meeting, not so much what he's referring to as a working meeting, that you have a lot of members of the public there that want to speak, and it's the chairman's job to keep the meeting in order. So, as a chairman on the planning board, I've had to gavel people down, and I'm sure it's happened at the school committee meeting, that hey, you're either getting off topic, or you're getting too emotional, or you're using profanity. It's like, you gavel them, you give them a warning, and if they continue, then you say you have to leave if it gets that bad. But that's really up to the chairman to conduct the meeting. That's the one job that is really the chairman. Other than that, all the members are the same.
They didn't want a public participation, like people come and speak before a meeting. They didn't want that either. You put your name on a list. They call you up. They don't even respond back to you.
Right, because that's what we do on school committee.
Right, same thing on the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, we have a designated community input. You sign up and you have designated
But you can
time.
also, by the way, waive the rule and talk to them if you really.
Yeah, we could make a motion and waive the rule.
That input is typically irrelevant to almost anything else that's happening in the meeting. So the zoning bylaw review, they're going over specific sections of the bylaw. It's hard to make a comment prior to any of the discussion that may actually have pertinent information to the discussion that they're having, because it hasn't happened yet. And prior to that, the zoning board, the chair, Scott Mallory, had invited people up previously, myself, Bob Flynn, who was the executive director of NEMCOG for 30 plus years. I mean, a very good community planning mind. We had John Crowley, who was also invited up, essentially invited to the table, as Allison Janess would say, to speak about his knowledge of
Which is vast too.
Yeah, and he was chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals for almost 40 years. I mean, it was a considerable amount of time. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge that he had too. So in this next clip with Scott Mallory, he gets into the fact that as chairman, he is invited. The committee has invited people in the past on this very, on speaking about some of their knowledge or any comments that they had regarding zoning bylaw, zones and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of information there. Why don't we run segment 2 with Scott and Mallory?
As far as the zoning bylaw review committee meetings are concerned, for the most part, I think we have tacitly invited public input, would you say? I'm looking at Allison Manugian. And I certainly agree that input has to be controlled. But one thing I'm reading off of a webpage off the MassGov site, it says, certainly the law gives the chair of the public body discretion to decide whether to permit public comment during the meeting, and if a public comment will be permitted, to set restrictions on it, such as time, designating, the topic. It also goes on to say, although the open meeting law does not require public bodies to allow public comment during meetings, we encourage public bodies to allow for such public or as much public participation as time and circumstances permit. In addition, we note that the Supreme Judicial Court recently explained that content-based restrictions on public comment may violate the portion of the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights protecting the right to assemble and the right to free speech.
So here we are.
And this is the chairman offering that opinion, where the lawyer just kind of babbled on and on without getting to that point.
Correct. So I mean, so now you have the Attorney General and the weight of that office and all the information that's been put forward by her or by that office, saying that in a public meeting, you should try to allow as much public participation as possible as permitted by time and the materials. Whereas we have a town council saying, no, the public shouldn't have a right to speak at all.
Well, you know why.
I do.
He can count to 3.
Yeah, so a little bit further into this meeting, he did a little more tap dancing and tried to convolute the issue even more by insinuating that if you're going to have public participation, if you anticipate it, then what you really should be doing is advertising for a public hearing and not a public meeting, which means now that, and for every meeting that you're planning on doing this, you should be advertising in the paper.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. Why don't we run that clip? That would be segment 3.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my
Sorry.
recommendation would be to be maybe a little bit clearer on the agenda of whether or not it's a public hearing or a public meeting. If your intention is to invite public comment, then please notice the matter as a public hearing, inviting all members of the public to the meeting to provide any input that they would on that particular agenda item. And it should be noticed, not just on the agenda, but providing public notice, which is published in the newspaper, of a public hearing on a particular matter. That would, I think, be consistent with the open meeting law, so that any interested party could appear at your meeting for that particular agenda item that is noticed as a public hearing and to fully participate. If it's simply noticed as an agenda item, it's a meeting item. And the public does not have the right to participate to the same extent as if it were a public hearing. That's the distinction.
Okay. Where on?
So he's again trying to put up these. I guess for Allison Jeunesse, he's trying to put up these hurdles for a committee that, okay, if you want to have if you want to allow the public to speak, then you need to do this. You need to advertise in the paper. Now, maybe not everybody knows, but of course, when you have a public hearing, you advertise it once. Well, 2 weeks before and then the week before, you advertise it. So it's being advertised twice. But it never gets advertised again. Each subsequential meeting really relies on the public to be following the hearing that has been advertised properly once. So for him to say that every single meeting needs to be advertised in the paper is erroneous. So you start to wonder, does this guy really know municipal law?
Well, I don't understand what the issue is, because if the way they were running the meeting wasn't causing an impediment to them conducting their business, then what really is the issue? Because on the Historic Commission, we will interact. It's usually 1 or 2 people may attend, and we'll interact. And we don't have an official public comment, but we'll ask. Or they may say, I'd like to interject something. School committee, we do follow our strict policy. But we can always, waive that too, though. It depends.
Correct.
It's usually, that policy is there more because sometimes, we can have a lot, if there's a specific, topic going on, that it might impede the board to do its business that night. So we do have a specific public input comment section. But again, we could waive that if we wanted to.
So, right. You have essentially in the school committee a full agenda. Planning board
we do.
has a full agenda. Board of Selectmen has a full agenda.
Yeah.
Very similar to the Historical Society. The Permanent Building Committee typically has a limited agenda based on specific items. Yeah. Occasionally we'll see somebody from the public there, and the chairman of that board will, after some business has been conducted and he doesn't see this person necessarily interacting or he doesn't know what this person might be here for specifically, he'll actually say, is one of these items that we're talking about something that has interested you, or is there something else? And try to do some conversation with them to find out. Some people just want to go. As you know, I'm a person that does that occasionally, go to the school committee meeting, and
yes, you do.
Then people will say, what are you here for? It's like, I'm a citizen, I can be here. But I mean, how do you feel about putting up, these theoretical roadblocks or hurdles
I just find it extremely ironic in that our government in Dracut is based on town meeting, which is the total participation of the public. That's what it's all about. You can speak on every warrant. You can go up as many times as you want, and you can say your piece. And that's how essentially the legislative body of the town is to approve the warrants, which are basically the bills to pay and to function our government, right? And it all comes from town meeting. And now this is kind of like a subsection as you come down, and now we're trying to limit speech. We don't want to hear from certain people because maybe we don't want to hear from them because we don't like them. They're not, they're a political adversary. So on something like this, where it's so important to the overall vibrancy of the town, to not hear, and especially, I don't think they're being deluged by people to talk. And I think if
I can assure you they are not.
No, but then again, if you're coming in and you're sitting in the crowd and there's something that you can specifically speak to where other people don't have that knowledge and they call you up, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and that goes
And
back.
if it's within the agenda, you just speak on this subject, right?
Right.
And it's within the agenda, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right, as long as the business of the board is still being taken care of.
Well, absolutely. So I can point to one instance with the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee that they were talking about the existing zones in Dracut. And Alison Manjusian had gone through the maps and said, in particular to the business zones, she said, we don't have any B2 zones, which is a business professional zone. And I raised my hand because I'm sitting away from the table. And Scott Mallory recognized me, and I said, there is a B2 zone. There's one property It's a quarter acre of land. And I gave the specific location, and Allison said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Oh, I'm sure." And she did research, and she actually found 3 other small lots that had been zoned as a B2 zone. So, you know, she thanked me for clarifying that, because there's stuff that gets lost in the weeds. And sometimes you need that institutional knowledge of where the weeds are. So towards the end of that particular agenda item, I think Warren Shaw had spoken up, and I think he kind of put it succinctly and accurately to kind of end the discussion. So why don't we run that segment?
Such as those governing procedures for public hearings may require additional notice. So maybe this is talking about public meetings, and maybe I didn't find the section that had to deal with public hearings, but okay.
Is that Chairman Mallory?
Yep.
Mr. Shaw?
Well, Scott took away a lot of my thunder. I completely agree with what he had to say. With all due respect to counsel, the open meeting law is very clear on what the limitations are, and it's very clear that the chair has discretion on public input into a meeting. I will agree with counsel that there is a difference between that type of participation and having a full-blown public hearing where people will come in and expect to give speeches. But when a community is asking for public input, you know, you're not going to set up a public hearing for each and every one of these meetings. So I mean, I certainly, you know, willing to put my trust into our chairman to run the meeting and control whatever public input comes through the door. And unfortunately, there hasn't been much. But you know, and again, no disrespect to counsel, but most of what he talked about was his own opinions and not what's in the open meeting law. And I think that's what we have to go by, is what's in the open meeting law.
Okay, anything else?
And then, right, and then silence. Because,
Well, no,
I mean,
it is the chair's job to run the meeting.
absolutely, absolutely.
That is the chair's job.
Yeah, so there is a public meeting tomorrow night, which would be February 8th, at Harmony Hall at 7 o'clock.
Public meeting or public hearing?
I think it's been advertised as a public meeting. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Although they're asking for public input. So anyway, they're going to be talking about the MBTA's multifamily
Right.
zone. So it's, again, it's, I wouldn't necessarily say it's all wonky for zoning bylaw stuff, but it all has to do with the multifamily zone that's part of the legislature that Dracut has to comply with certain areas and creating.
I think I'm going to go.
I would encourage most people to go because, so I always say that zoning is not a difficult subject, although people try to pretend it is. It's just very dry. It's like reading the phone book. It's not difficult to read the phone book, but nobody really wants to do it. So, but it has a major impact, of course, on your home, your neighborhoods, your businesses that are trying to develop. So I would recommend that people go to Harmony Hall tomorrow, February 8th at 7 o'clock, and take part in this public hearing or meeting, public something or other. Why don't we move on?
Whatever.
I think
yeah.
Well, it just seems like a lot to do about really nothing. Because
Honestly, it is.
I
This-
still don't understand what the real issue is. If the meeting
real,
was
you know what the real issue is? Him.
They don't want me to participate.
And you know what? First of all, I don't believe in creating starting fights with you shouldn't start a fight. You know, sometimes you have to get into a battle, and that's fine. But in this case, it never had to happen. It happened because of, I'm going to say, political pettiness and revenge, which is probably, you know, one of the second favorite sports in Massachusetts. Revenge, sports, politics, revenge, right? And it's
I
just
think in Dracut, revenge is a little higher on the list.
it all depends who's sitting on the board of selectmen for the revenge.
Absolutely.
You know, but I just think it's that they don't want to hear from him, I don't, you know, and
It's
then,
not
and
that-
they,
right. It's-
and then they
it's-
create
it's
a
one,
situ-
it's one or two people specifically.
and then, that's right, and then they create a situation that, okay, we can't hear from him because he's ethically challenged. For God's sakes, he called ethics and got out of a whole thing before it even started, you know, before he actually could have stayed on planning, right? Was it
Absolutely.
planning? Could have stayed on
Absolutely.
planning and just recused yourself, walked out in the hall, you know.
As
But
other
no,
people
but
have
you
done.
got off the board because you didn't want to have any inference of a conflict of interest.
Yep.
And they used that as a weakness, and that was actually an election tactic when you were running for selectman.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, it came on the radio as we know about. So it's just petty. It's juvenile, and it's you know Dracut's not a small town anymore. We're a town,
No.
but we're not a small town. And these things, you know, trying to hold your power just to get back at a political enemy. It's just you're not serving the good of the people that way. It's a self-serving. I don't even know if it's even self-serving. It's just so immature.
Yeah, I just don't understand the whole thing.
Nothing but high school politics, essentially, you know, running
know.
for class
But
president.
what would have happened in high school, right? We go outside and by the tree and have a fight,
There
and
you go.
then it's over.
There you go.
Because the chair can still, if he wants to, have a motion and suspend the rules and let someone speak.
First of all,
on
what's
a
the number
specific
again, Phil?
topic. So I don't understand what the issue is.
What's the number?
So the
again?
number here, the number to call in, and please do, 978-957-4243.
Allison Jeanette, please call in. We would love to discuss this. We won't trap
no,
you.
bec-
We'll just let you give your views on this. Please call in.
Because the school committee will be having a public hearing on the school budget, right?
Right.
'Cause
Well,
it's
that must be a real hoot.
It's a specific topic, and you get to come up and talk, and we can interact. right?
Almost as good as zoning bylaws.
Yes, exactly.
No,
Well,
no,
you're talking to someone who likes to sit on the policy committee,
Right,
so,
right.
you know. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so why don't we move on, because I
Fine.
think you had mentioned, you know, it's essentially about all politics. Well, one of the biggest political things that's coming up in May will be a new election.
No
Yes,
election.
New election,
So,
yes.
Remember, election. I've been saying this forever. Elections have consequences,
Yes, they do.
and we'll see how much. You know, we'll see what happens in this run.
Yeah, so nomination papers became available at the beginning of February, a few days ago.
February 1st.
Do you
There
have your
are,
signatures yet, Rebecca?
I think I'm up to 20 so far.
Okay,
I got
okay.
them I've been starting to getting them. I pulled them the other day.
yeah, so the.
Monday. I went Monday.
Yeah,
and
so
pulled my
we
papers.
have an election for one seat for Board of Selectmen, two
Correct.
seats
For
on the school committee.
Yeah.
One seat for water commissioner, right? Water
That's
commissioner.
what, so in the
Moderate- moderator.
in the district, there's moderator and a commissioner.
Water and the
I
moderator.
believe
Yep.
we have two seats for the library trustees. One is
Okay.
to fulfill the remainder of a seat
Okay.
term, and one is for a full term. And I don't think town moderator isn't up because that election was last year.
Yeah,
Right.
that was
So it's
last
a couple
year.
years. That used to be every year, you know.
It was, and
I
they
preferred
made
it stayed that way. That's
Why?
just me.
Why?
Why? Because I think that's a position that is so important in town that it might require a yearly pick. That's a huge. I mean, you're running the legislative action of the town. Nothing happens without. I'm not saying anything about George. I like George Miliaris, and I think he's done a good job. And but I just didn't want to go to the 3 years. I wanted to stay at the 1 year and do it every year. I think it's tough making somebody run every year.
That
But look
is.
at Lowell City Council; they run every 2 years,
every
right?
2 years.
Every 2 years, yeah.
Yeah. So I can understand 3 years. Really, almost every other term, except for housing. Well, housing authority has one seat that will be up also, and that's a 5-year term. But all the other terms are
Yeah,
3-year
3 years
terms,
goes by
so
quick.
It does.
Somebody who's just sat
Sometimes-
going into was this your second
Sometimes
term?
No, I'm up for re-election.
For your second term.
This will be my second term.
So sometimes
If I get
3 years
elected.
is a very long time.
Yeah, it depends.
Sometimes 2 weeks is a long time, Phil.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes.
And I would like to just say that Rob Shepherd has also pulled papers,
Yes.
the other incumbent, so he's also looking for signatures too.
Yep, so we have 3 people who have pulled papers for Board of Selectmen.
Dave Martin,
Dave Martin, Josh Taylor,
Taylor,
and
and
Don Plummer.
Don Palmer.
Yep, and from what I understand on a post today, Don Plummer has returned his nomination papers with sufficient signatures.
Wow.
Wow.
So they've been
He was-
certified already.
Well, he's
fast.
a newbie.
He's a
He's a
go-getter.
newbie. He's an eager beaver.
He's enthusiastic about it.
Yeah,
So-
he's excited about this.
Yeah, so I mean, we can do all sorts of speculation beforehand, but nomination papers need to be returned
Yeah.
March 15th, I
Yeah.
think it is, mid-March.
Then you don't have to worry about them.
And then that's the real campaign season.
That's
so.
right.
I know when I returned my wife's when she returned her papers, it's such a relief. Now you know you can really get down to what you need to do, where you need to go, and who you need to talk to. You know, instead of like just the signature phase. You know.
Yep.
I've already signed Josh's. I'll be signing yours tonight. I want to sign. What's his name? I keep forgetting Dawn's name.
Dawn
I want
Plummer.
to sign Dawn's. I'll sign Dave. I'll
Dave
sign
Martin.
everybody. Everything Mary. Put them all on there. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, I think
The more the merrier.
I've had dealings with all of them in some fashion or another. I mean, Don, I think, has been more on a personal note occasionally when I get to see him or his wife. Dave and Josh, I've actually conducted
Yeah.
business
Dave
So-
actually installed something in my house and did a great. Actually, yeah, him and his son, they did a great
Yeah.
job. So now Dave is right across the parking lot from me.
Okay.
So Dave, if you're listening, come by tomorrow. I will be more than happy to sign your papers. Honest.
So, as we know, you're up for re-election.
Yes, I
and
am.
You certainly sound like you're interested in being re-elected.
Yes, I enjoy working
So
on
how's been your first term been?
Oh, my first term, I've enjoyed it a lot, you know. It's interesting because, yeah, I've been in education now 20 years. So first as a teacher here in Dracut. I also, over in Lowell as an administrator. So I've seen education as the teacher, the administrator. I teach at the UMass, so I've seen it at the college level. That's kind of fun when you see former students now in college, right?
Yeah.
And then you see it now from the school committee side. And it's interesting as a history, teacher. We teach civics. It's interesting to actually do civics, right?
Well,
Actually do it. And then you look at things through a different lens when you sit on the school committee than as a teacher or an administrator,
I
right?
can understand. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't understand taking a look at things from an elected point because
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
But I kind of liken it to, my father and my son.
Right.
So, I mean, I know him, my son's age now, it's like I can remember that. And then now I'm looking at it from my father's point of view because I'm my father's age
Yeah.
from my son's age. And it's like, oh, geez,
You see it from different points of view,
You see it
right?
from all the different points of
Yes.
view. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is
Rebecca, I
interesting.
think teaching is so much fun. I taught a political science 101 course at a community college in New Hampshire, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I just was astounded by what the kids coming out of high school didn't know
Yeah.
that we knew when we,
Oh, yeah, I'm teaching US 1 over at the college, it's a survey course, so.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting what they don't know for their history, right? Like stuff that I think, that I consider very basic, right?
Yeah, and you're going over something and people looking at
Yeah.
they'd say, Professor, can you, or they would call me Attorney George, can you slow down? 'Cause they couldn't do it with my last name. But,
That would be a great segment, Ask Attorney George.
There you go. There
Right.
you go.
well, yeah, but that doesn't have to be stuck with law. I mean,
No.
I have opinions on everything.
Yeah.
They might not be right, but you'll get them quick.
That's right.
And you'll get them concise.
No.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No, but to go back to your original question, I've enjoyed my time on the board, and we have a lot that's being undertaken, especially now with the Campbell School project. And
What are
yeah.
some of your thoughts on that?
Well,
To kind of bring people up to speed, the Campbell School was built originally in 1973
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah.
It's pretty much all original. And the school district has been trying to talk with the MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority, to renovate the whole building, or maybe
Or
even
maybe-
build brand new. So,
Right, that hasn't been determined yet.
so we've.
Do they have a site picked out if they go brand new?
Well, there's
That's all part of the
It's
feasibility
part of the
study.
feasibility study. There's more acre.
Well, the same thing with
acres-
Greenmont, right? Was
Well,
Greenmont
that space is too small. They can't build on Greenmont, that lot. But Greenmont, yeah, that building's old. That was 1922, 24, when it was first
Yeah,
built.
yeah.
that
Yeah.
was Dracut High School at one time.
It was, yeah. It was built as an elementary school, and they converted it to Dracut
I know
High.
that because my
Yeah.
uncle graduated from there.
Yeah.
When they did, it wasn't from Dracut High School
Oh,
on
wow.
Lakeview Avenue.
So
But
how's that
So
whole
it-
process
it's
been?
really been interesting, right? You have to go through and we've been in executive session to, review the OPM candidates and things like that, which is the owner's project manager, which is very important to oversee the whole project. So we're now out of that phase and,
Yeah, so
it's very interesting.
How is that funded? Because I haven't noticed anybody go to town meeting for money for that. Is there
No.
money?
So, no, there was an
There was.
expenditure
Was there? Okay.
last
Yeah,
June
Yeah, last June.
for $1 million, I
Because if
believe.
they, because if they decide to, we go for an override to build that, depending on how the whole finances come out, what if an override doesn't pass?
Well, I'd probably
It
ask
just-
for a debt exclusion.
So it would more than likely be a debt exclusion. I don't really want to speculate on
Yeah,
what
it's
building costs would be
We have
because
no idea.
they'll be high.
Yeah.
I mean, the high school renovation was construction costs
What about
45 or 50
I thought
million.
50 million.
And so there are the soft costs involved with that for paying for, the designers and OPMs and stuff like that. So I think the town ultimately put in a debt exclusion for 60 million, 65 million.
That sounds about right.
And then the state, through the MSBA, through their programming, actually reimbursed 62% of that.
Right.
Was it 62%?
It was
Are
actually
we
a high
looking at the
That's
same
high.
thing on this one, you think?
So I don't see why not. We're in the same sort of scenario. They recognize it. We were getting some extra points because the buildings were well maintained. And if you maintain buildings from the past, they assume you'll keep that maintenance up.
Yep.
So
Now, what about
that
the
drives a few
dwindling
extra points.
population in Dracut Public Schools? Does that have anything to do with this?
That is all studied through the feasibility study.
Okay.
And they'll look at, I think 5 to 10 years out, what
Yeah, they'll
types
do
of projects
an
are
enrollment
coming in.
projection.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the school is essentially based on the projected enrollment projection.
No, so
But
it's been
it's
great.
been a good process,
It's
to
been
be
a-
honest.
So far, it's been a good process.
So the high school, it was done solely through the permanent building committee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we did have members, a member from the school committee. We did have the superintendent involved. But the voting members were really the permanent building committee and one school committee person who was
Okay.
brought on board to the permanent building committee
Well, yeah,
as
and
a voting
and for
member.
our case, that's going to be Rob Shepherd. Yeah,
That should be Rob.
yeah, because of his background.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Is he civil engineer, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Is he a PE? Did he
I
get his?
believe he is. I
He is,
believe
yeah,
is.
okay.
I don't know. I just know he's
Yeah.
a civil engineer.
Well, because there's different levels, a PE is, you take it, basically it's like a bar exam,
Yeah. Take a registration exam,
I see.
essentially.
but they let you bring a calculator, that's
So
what
is-
I know.
So has there been any other subcommittee or portion of the
Oh, yeah.
school committee?
Yeah,
that
I
you-
serve on the policy subcommittee with Linda Truval, and we did a full policy review with MASC last year. So our policies are up to date.
When was the last time that was done?
We try to do it every few years.
Okay.
Yeah, so, because policy is one of the 3 things that we oversee as school committee.
Okay.
Policy, budget, superintendent.
Yep.
Right, so policy is significant. I also was on the negotiation team with, I think it was Allison, I forget, I was on a couple, for the custodial maintenance and this.
What do you oversee the superintendent's budget, correct? Because you guys really can't, get your appropriation other than at town meeting through the town, the
Well,
manager,
we have to
right?
approve the entire budget,
Yeah.
that we ask him to create the budget for us, so.
Right.
Yeah, and we oversee it like that. So if we wanted, for example, if we wanted to think about, if we wanted to bring in more languages at the, middle school level, we might say, well, add a teacher here or something. Those are discussions that we might have, but he constructs the budget, and then we review it and approve it. Yeah. But yes, the budget ultimately gets approved at town meeting,
Yeah.
right? Student Advisory Committee, Renee Young and I
Okay.
meet with the student representatives at the high school bi-monthly. And there was another one. Sorry, I can't think of it right now.
But there's
there's
a
several.
visioning session or
Oh, yes, the listening sessions.
listening session. That's what it is.
That's something that the school committee put into place a couple of years ago now. We have monthly listening sessions where people can just come and talk.
Wow, you're willing to talk to the public?
Yes, two of us. We
Wow.
can't have a quorum. but-
No,
Yeah,
but
But
it's,
two
it's
of us always sit somewhere, usually at a coffee shop, and people are just free to come and talk to us.
I'll say sarcastically, it's refreshing to have a committee in town that's willing to listen to the public.
Yes, in fact, and the next one is, I think I have a graphic for that, Nate. Will be next week. It's going to be Allison and Renee, and they're going to be, can you put it up one more time? I'm not sure everyone saw that. And it's going to be Allison and Renee at the Dunkin' Donuts on Broadway at 5:30.
At 5:30.
Well,
Yeah.
that's in my office.
Yeah, so it's totally open. You just come and you can speak.
I've been to a couple.
You have, yes.
And I've seen a number of people there, and
Yeah.
sometimes you don't see.
Yeah, it all depends.
there, right.
Yeah, and we do them at different times. One time I did it on a Saturday morning, you
Yeah.
know. Sometimes it's in the evening. We started also holding them at the Dracut Council on Aging too.
Oh, nice.
So Rob and I were on the calendar for last month.
That's
and
nice.
we sat at the COA and had several folks sit with us.
Because it's not just parents that
No.
go to this. I mean, the
Everyone-
citizens.
Well,
the
you know,
citizens
It's
right,
people-
should be going.
I have a keen interest because I have 5 grandchildren going to Dracut Public Schools now.
Right.
5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's half of them. And, you know, I have an interest in what's going on down there. But, you know, we have our own listening session on Saturday morning, and we have coffee. So anybody who wants their nomination papers signed, please come to coffee at Dunkin' Donuts at 9:30 on Lakeview Avenue in Dracut.
Yeah, we're usually there.
That's right. But you bring up a good point, because one of the ladies who was at our listening session at the COA, that was her question. She was concerned about, you know, should her daughter send her granddaughter to the Dracut Public Schools or, you know, Catholic school.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know,
I'm kind of both, because I went through Dracut schools up until the 8th grade, and then I was sent to, against my will actually, to Bishop Girton in Nashua, New Hampshire. Although it turned out a good thing for me, I didn't want to leave town, but I did. I had to. I'm a product of both.
I myself pretty
Yeah.
much just through parochial school.
oh,
and
did you? I'm
parishes
public
and stuff
school.
like that,
Not
yeah.
Dracut. I graduated from Beverly
Yeah.
High School. Went through the Beverly Public Schools. So, and then I went to Salem State College. So, public schools, state schools.
So you're also involved in another committee, the Varnum Award Committee.
Oh yes, the Varnum Award. Yes, I've been doing that for years.
Oh.
Yes.
I mean, the one time, honestly, let's speak about it. I'll come back to you on that.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
we have a picture of Joseph Bradley Varnum. That's
there
actually
he
his
is.
official portrait in the House of Representatives, because he was Speaker of the House.
Wow.
You know, he's really an amazing man. I have some notes here
You know,
about
it's,
him.
and how many people in Dracut know that? I
No,
mean, he
he's-
was essentially third in command of the country.
Oh, yeah. He was amazing what he did. He was born January 29th, 1750, so that's why we have Varnum. January 29th is actually supposed to be Varnum Day, right? And that's why we have the Varnum Award this time
No,
of
he
the
was
year.
born in Dracut, correct?
Yes, he was
But
born in
there's a lot of
Dracut.
Varnum stuff in Lowell, too.
Oh, yes, same family. Yeah, he's a
Was he
descendant.
born in Pawtucketville?
No, he
Where,
was-
when Dracut, when that was part of Dracut?
No, he was
up
born.
to the river?
No, he was actually born here because he was 1750
Right.
on this side of the river. But he is a descendant of Samuel Varnum, and he was a captain in the Massachusetts militia during the Revolution. I didn't write down all the battles that he was in. I think he was at Bunker Hill, but don't hold me to that. In White Plains, I'd have to double check. And he ended up, even after the war, he stayed in the military. He rose to major general in 1805. But listen to his political history here. 1780 to 85, he was a state rep in Massachusetts. 1786 to 1795, state senator. then elected to U.S. House of Representatives from 1795 to 1811. And for 4 years, 1807, or 3 years, 1807 to 1811, he was Speaker of the House.
Wow.
Right. Then after Speaker of the House, he was elected as U.S. Senator from 1811 to 1817.
Wow.
Then, after his service in Washington, he came back to serve as state senator again until his death in
Wow, that's something.
1821. Oh, he's remarkable, you know, truly remarkable man in the service he did.
I know in the Historic Society, there's a travel trunk, I believe,
Yeah,
that
we have a
belongs
picture
to
of that.
him.
Yeah, his travel trunk. Yeah, that's at the Dracut Historical Society.
Yep.
Yeah, and the inside is actually lined with newspaper with, I forget the date, but it's
Wow.
actually, yeah, it's really remarkable.
Yeah, and I think that tag essentially gives the route that he traveled
He
to
traveled
get to
with it.
Washington. Yeah.
And then I have another photograph of where his house stood. It burned in 19...
Where is that located?
It was located right next to the Varnum Cemetery. Yeah,
Okay.
right on the bend in the road there.
Okay.
So it's right. It was right there. It burned in 1930, 33, you know. So, yeah, that's the Varnum homestead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's remarkable of all the historical buildings that we lost to fire.
Oh, yeah.
Over just the past 100 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
they've
really-
been there for 200
Well,
plus years.
You know, Phil, on my stint on the historical commission, we did the survey of properties, which we spent a little money,
That's right. some
and
CPC
we did
money on
it.
that.
Brought in an independent consultant, did a survey just to, you know, to know what we had, and you know.
Yes, as a matter of fact, there's a copy of that in the library.
Right.
And there might be a copy of that at the Historical Society. I'm not sure.
I think I have one at home too. I have a
Yeah.
CD too.
But it was, yeah, a full report of different houses. It was
Yeah.
photographs, and I think they also did one architecturally for different architectural
It's
styles.
interesting, yeah. So anyway, that's Joseph Bradley Varnum, for whom the award is named. And this is now going to be, I don't know, quite several years now we've been doing this,
It has been.
you know?
I know my wife enjoyed when she was in the Board of Selectmen doing that with you.
Yes, yes.
And
I've-
I guess my uncle was nominated for that at one time.
Yeah, the Kostelakis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was a prisoner of war, was a teacher at the Vogue,
Yeah.
was spent the last year of the war in a German prison camp
Mm.
until he got liberated outside of Berlin. And, you know, he just broke his leg on the tells an interesting story of bailing out of a B-52, landing in Berlin, and people came out with pitchforks and things
Oh,
because
okay.
they just bombed.
Right,
And
yeah.
the German army actually saved him from
Wow,
death.
yeah. The nominations will open next week. I spoke to Shannon down
Okay,
at Town Hall.
Well,
and-
what's the whole process behind
process that-
nominating somebody?
We're looking for someone who has a community service, maybe military service. Every person has not been a veteran, but often, in the spirit of Joseph Bradley Varnum, we're looking for someone with military, community service, or either, right?
Yep.
Who has been really contributed to the town of Dracut. Yeah.
There are a lot of people,
Oh,
too,
there are.
that go as unsung heroes.
Oh,
that-
total unsung heroes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and it's always a pleasure to read the people who are submitted. We had quite a few nominations last year, you know, and it's amazing to see what people do. you know?
So, I've talked to you about it previously.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll talk to the committee about it. But I've always felt that just having one award makes it a competition, and I know that's not the spirit of,
No, that's not the
of
spirit.
the award.
Right.
So I've always thought that if you had multiple awards, then it becomes truly an award ceremony.
It would have.
And-
That would have been nice because I think my uncle was a semifinalist or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he-
I guess
he
it-
didn't but you know, and that would have been nice to honor him because I think he passed away the next year.
yeah.
So
And I'm not sure if you know,
Well, there's
and
no-
maybe I'm not reading it right, and the people who are submitting it aren't submitting it, they're not seeing it as a competition. But if somebody is viewing it that way, do they hold back on the submission because, well, there's somebody else who might be better or
So
something like
who's
that?
on the
or
committee with
something
you?
else?
It's always been me and Kathy Richardson.
right.
And then it's always someone from the Board of Selectmen. So the past few years, it's been Allison Janess. Tony Yachinsky has served on it. And maybe Heather one year, I forget. We've been doing it quite a few years now.
Right.
maybe 9 years, 8
Yeah, I
years.
think,
I
I
know
think,
you had
Al-
Tammy for a couple years.
And Tammy, yeah, so
yeah,
we've,
I think Allison Janessa asked the selectmen if they wanted to have that role, and
yeah.
I don't think anybody came forward,
No,
so
so she stayed on.
She stayed
Yeah.
on.
So it's been the same group of people. That's the two of us and someone from the board, you know. But to your point, you know, Phil, it's at the discretion of the committee, really. There's no rule that says it's hard and fast must be one. So I suppose if we had maybe just 2 submissions and they're both worthy, maybe we would vote on it. I don't want to speak for the committee. I don't know. I'm just saying.
No,
Did
I
I'm
would,
just saying
Gagnon
it's
get
worthy
the
of
award ever?
discussion. What's that?
Harvey Gagnon, did he ever get the award?
Yes,
Yes,
Harvey
okay.
Gagnon. Let's
Then-
see if I
then-
can remember them all off the top of my head. It was Hector, Harvey, Dave Paquin. Last year was the gentleman there, the World War,
I think he
Two
moved out of
veteran.
town, didn't he?
Pat, was his name Pat
Hmm.
Waller?
No, John, right? Wasn't there
John McDonald.
I think, didn't he leave town?
He,
believe
I don't know.
I believe he did. Edna Cutter?
Edna Cutter, yes.
Remember that, I was
Edna-
at that ceremony.
Edna Cutter, yeah. So that's we're up to 7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a few. There
Well,
might be a few
We might
more.
be I feel like I'm missing someone there,
Yeah.
but anyway.
Now, do you have like a cup or a trophy at Town Hall that inscribes the names
Yes,
of the year?
at the, in the Board of Selectmen, there's actually, I had, the way this all started was my friend at the Songus Industrial History Center, Sheila Kirschbaum, got wind of a small grant, it was only $500, through the Patriotic Order of the Founders of the American Republic or something, some patriotic organization. She goes, I can't do anything with this, it's too small for my organization, you might be able to do something with it. So that's when I reached out to Kathy Richardson, and I said, hey, what if we had a portrait done of Joseph Bradley Varnum, and that's in the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
It was a Dracut High student who did it,
Yeah.
and we have a little plaque with the
Nice.
names. Yeah, so it's nice, you know? Yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of gets us away from, the blood sport of politics for a little bit.
Yeah, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of good people doing a lot of good things in the town.
Absolutely. And like I said, there's a lot of unsung heroes. And there are some people who don't want to be recognized and
Yeah.
just have fantastic stories
Exactly.
that, honestly, I wish they would be recognized because if not for them, to inspire somebody else to do the same thing.
Exactly.
I mean, that's essentially what the purpose of giving the award to somebody, not only to celebrate them, but to inspire other people.
Absolutely. So I encourage nominations next week,
So,
okay? That'll be posted on the website.
okay,
I believe you can submit electronically. I think so you should be able to submit
How
electronically.
extensive
Or you can print
is the
it.
application?
It's just you write a narrative. It's a personal narrative. So it can be as long or short as the nominator wants it to be, you know?
and is there a deadline?
There will be a deadline. I don't know what it is yet, though. But
Okay.
there always is, because we haven't posted it yet. It'll go up next week. I spoke to Shannon this week.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
So when I know, I'll let you know.
And we'll make sure it gets onto our Facebook page too, so you know.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You had a request for a topic that we usually don't have on What's
Okay.
Happening Dracut.
What's that?
Sports.
Oh, I love sports.
And I know
Yeah.
George loves to talk about sports
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I can do that.
So
Okay.
I could excuse myself and let both of you go
Well,
ahead.
one thing
But
I-
hey, let's.
I love sports.
One
In
thing I
fact-
wanted to bring up was the new varsity head football coach at Bishop Girton.
Okay.
Excuse me, at Dracut High School. I should hold it. But I actually coached against that kid in an all-star game up in New Hampshire. And we were, I had the linebackers, and we were playing a 40, which was 4 linebackers, and we had a plan for him. It didn't work. He ripped us apart.
Really?
Was the MVP of the game. Went on to UNH. Was an outstanding quarterback there. Played a year in Canada in the Pro Bowl, and now he's here in Dracut. And I think he runs a quarterbacks camp in the summer, which is if you want, for Dracut residents, if you have a talented kid who can play quarterback and he wants to be a quarterback, this Dracut High may be the place to send him now.
Really?
Because this guy can develop a quarterback. There's no question in my mind.
Well-
And he comes from a family of coaches. His father, Scott, I coached against when we used to play Nashua High. So I'm very familiar with the family, and I was very happy to see that.
Oh, well, that's good to hear, because I only, I know I don't know him. No, I'm
I
not a
don't
coach.
actually. I don't know him.
Right, but you've coached against him. so.
I remember him. Put it
Yeah,
that way.
you remember him, so. Yeah, so I'm excited to have the new coach on board, and hopefully we'll start rebuilding the
I remember
program.
one of my kids was coming in to tackle him, and all he got was air, right? And he came to the sidelines, and I said, "What happened?" I don't know. I had him, and he was gone. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
let's.
Somebody
Yeah,
who,
let's try.
who had
That
some
means
knowledge
that, you
of
know
it.
what that means? That means he put his head down, took his eyes off him. Once he took his eyes off him, he was
Yeah.
gone. So keep your head up,
Yeah.
because that's can't lose somebody like that. But this kid was really outstanding, and I understand he's an outstanding person. I don't know him personally,
Right.
but I know his family. I know what he comes from. I saw him perform at the highest high school level in New Hampshire. So
Well, it's good to hear good things. The other people have said good things too, so we're excited to have him on board for sure, you know?
let's try to support him.
Yes.
And this is how I think we should support him. I think we should drop user fees. You shouldn't, some families can't afford it. And I know that, I just don't think it really helps. And, and where I think sports do you agree with sports are part of an education in high
Yes,
school?
I do.
And so there's a constitutional right in Massachusetts for a free education.
Yep.
And but you're paying. I mean, sometimes you're paying for busing, you're paying for activities. It's just, my idea is I think you get more kids, and you get maybe better attitudes from the parents if they're not forking up, I don't know what the cost is, but if you say you put say $250 or whatever it is, right? You pay the $250, you go to games, and your kid's not playing. Well, why isn't he playing? Because it's not participation. But I paid that money, right? You get some bad feelings from parents,
Well, we all agree that there should be no fees. Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for Phil, but
Well, I suppose in that regard, I mean, is it the same for other extracurricular activities?
we did have fees for fine and performing arts, but we did eliminate those last year because the goal is to eliminate all fees, and we
Then-
reduced the
then
fees
should-
on the sports too.
It should be enough.
Just like
It
this.
should be enough if to charge it. You don't only charge admission to basketball games.
Yeah.
Charge admission to plays and concerts and things. And you charge admission to football. I'm not sure about the soccer or field hockey or anything like that, but I know you charge admission to basketball, to football, girls basketball, boys basketball, and hopefully maybe that's enough.
Yeah. Well, ideally, that's what we'd like to get rid of, right? Is all the fees.
And if you get some popularity back into the sports,
Well, that's the thing. We need to see.
because some
well,
games all you see is the parents.
Yeah. And some sports have seen an increase, like golf. Golf numbers of participation in golf is going up.
And hockey too. Hockey's a very expensive sport.
Yeah, hockey's
And almost
expensive.
hockey parents are the ones who really understand how much ice time goes
Well,
for.
That's
that's it.
and
You
the
have to get
equipment and
ice
things
time,
like
and
that.
Yeah.
there's only ice in certain locations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So I'm excited, like you, for the new football coach, though. But I'm
Good.
also excited to watch the Celtics game tonight.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, you can watch it. Well, there's a big TV where we're going. Who are they playing tonight?
They're Atlanta Hawks.
Atlanta Hawks.
Yes, Atlanta Hawks. Yeah.
Well, I watched the Bruins last night. and
Bruins,
I
yeah.
shouldn't have even bothered.
No, you shouldn't have bothered.
I was driving to Maine last night, so and then driving back, I never caught the game.
Yeah.
I had to go to a.
You didn't
I-
miss much.
I
I had it on for a little while.
I had to go to a planning board meeting in Arundel, Maine.
Yeah.
I should have brought Phil with me, but
Yeah, so something that was remarked to me by my wife was that how come the Bruins always lose against the worst teams?
Well, it happened to the
because they're
Celtics.
coming off they hadn't get off vacation yet.
Well, that's it. I
Yeah,
mean,
they just had their All-Star
you know
break.
who you know who was not going to play well? The guys who come in with the nicest tans, because they've been flying back and forth, and they've been they probably haven't been doing what they should do.
Yeah. Well, that's been the criticism of the Celtics since we play down to our competition. I mean, last Friday we lost to the Lakers, right? And Anthony Davis and LeBron James weren't playing. We should have easily won that game. Instead, we lost. And we were at home.
But who was the guy? Reeves? He was throwing them in
Oh,
from
yeah.
like almost half court.
He was on fire,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But,
So
but we're going into our All-Star break pretty soon, too. We've been playing like 7 straight games at home. Actually, we set a record this year. First 20 games.
Oh, really?
20-0 at home to start the season.
Wow.
That is a new franchise
that Boston
record.
record, that's right.
Yeah, that's a new franchise record.
The
Yeah.
Bruins did
but
something
you know
like
what?
that
They didn't. The '86 team,
The 86 team was the best team.
they lost one game at home the whole
One.
year.
That's right.
Who
One.
they lose to?
I thought it was the Lakers.
Portland.
Oh, it was Portland? Okay. That was the best team. Actually, they did that statistically. They figured out on Comcast Sportsnet, right? They figured out by doing different statistics, and they had brackets, which was the greatest Celtics team of all time.
Well,
And ultimately, they got
they got to the 86. I saw
86.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had other teams playing.
seven,
other
I think it was
teams.
the other team. I think the finals was the 86 team versus the 73 team.
Yeah, but
I think.
you know,
73 or 74.
They're forgetting the team that won 9 out of 10. You know, with Bill Russell.
Oh, I know,
those
right?
were great teams.
Well, the 59 team was remarkable too because
you
they
had
had
Russell, Cousy, Havlicek, Heinsohn.
they had some scoring records. The 59
the
team.
Jones brothers. They had so
Oh yeah,
many
they
guys.
were remarkable, right?
And it's funny, the Celtics, I used to go to Celtics games when I was a little kid because you could walk in on the day of a game and get a ticket.
Yeah.
My father took me to the 7th game of a Lakers series, right, for the championship. And he bought a ticket and we walked in that day and sat behind the basket.
Oh wow, yeah, that's not
You
going to
know,
happen today.
I saw a shot by Don Nelson that hit the rim, went straight up, and came through, and that basically they won the game with that.
Wow.
So
But there was a great stat the other day they had with a scoring statistic, right? About the most points scored in a game or something like that, right? Because we had scored, I think, 70 or 80 points and a half, right? So that's what they were talking about. The 59 team scored like 170 points, like in a game once. It was
but
remarkable.
the
and
game was different because
they had no 3-point shot though. It was all
No.
twos, right?
the game was different. There was, you know, they didn't shoot as well.
Yep.
There were a lot of rebounds, so you know, Bill
But
Russell.
still,
was-
to get to that
they-
that
It
score
was
would be
remarkable.
It was
Yeah.
they were a remarkable organization anyway. They were, you know, they let us get through the tough times of the Red Sox and
Yeah.
the Patriots.
Well, we're in the
You
tough
know,
times
they were
again
in-
with the Red
no, They
Sox.
were in last. The Patriots and the Red Sox were in last place while the Celtics were winning championships.
Yeah. Well,
then
we're going to
came-
be in last place
and
again
then
with the
came
Red
Bob-
Sox.
Well,
We haven't spent any money, George.
well,
mean, come on.
they spent they're at about $200 million.
For what? Justin Turner left. Who's that?
You know what?
DH?
I'm
Who's
always
the DH going to be now?
I'm always optimistic until I see them play.
I'm not optimistic.
I am.
Well,
I mean,
For
to
what?
be honest, I remember those days when you wait for the first pitch, and as soon as it went out, you started yelling, "Wait till next year!"
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know. They brought back Theo Epstein, so we'll see if they spend.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to be.
I think he's going to have his hand in it.
You think so?
Yeah, because who do you think? I said to my son, you know, when they hired Breslow, I said, Theo's going to follow, you know. And they said, well, why is that? I said, because he hired him in Chicago. He's a favorite. That's why Breslow came here was from Theo.
Yeah.
So don't think that Theo doesn't have his hand in the baseball team, because the baseball team's suffering, and it's the only really Fenway sports group that's really not performing. I mean, the Penguins are okay. They own
They own a lot.
Liverpool.
Yeah, they own Liverpool.
Rouse Racing. They own all the
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh Penguins,
Yep.
and I think they want to get it. They're looking at an NBA team or an expansion team in Vegas,
Yeah.
or something along those lines. But that's pro sports. See, we could. I just don't. We came on talking like I used to do a segment on the show years ago, where I would do highlights after a Patriots game.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I would just sit there and make fun of one of the hosts because he wanted to trade Brady. Guess who that was?
I remember
yeah,
that.
Now you
now.
remember that.
I remember that now. But you also did color for
Dracut High School
for-
football.
For Dracut High School football.
That was tough, and it was tough because I never wanted to criticize any kids,
Yeah.
and so I couldn't really say what I was thinking, and that was tough to hold my tongue and just say, well, you know, if a Dracut kid made an awful play, which was common with the last
I mean,
few
it's high
teams they
school.
had,
Yeah.
right?
High school.
No,
Kids.
but the last few years they've had tough teams.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that the Methuen kid made a good play.
Yeah.
Or the kid from Billerica made a good play. When I saw from my personal knowledge that the Dracut kid blew a lot of assignments. I said to one of the coaches who I know pretty well, his son is playing on my grandson's basketball team. I said, you remember we used to come down and we talk about, you know, because he was up in the sky and I was in the box. And he goes, yeah, and I would say to him, well, why aren't you running this and why aren't you running that? He says, we are. I said, what do you mean? That doesn't look like that. He says, he goes, trust me, I know, but it's our intent. So we'll see. Hopefully he gets a good staff. I think I'm over that that phase of my life. So I would have tried to call a meeting, see if I could get in a meeting with them. I would love to do linebackers, but you know, I think I'm past that. Let the younger guys do that. So.
And speaking of sports, we had the Athletic Hall of Fame inductions last fall too for Dracut High School, right? If we want to talk about that and highlight some of our
Absolutely.
So there's our Athletic Hall of Fame wall in Dracut High School.
So where
And
is that
By the
in the
gym.
high school?
Yeah, it's by the gym.
Oh, so is it on the second floor?
Yes.
Is it the second floor? I always forget.
It's the second
I
floor
get
because,
disorientated
because you
when
have to go into the gym. You have to come up to the
Oh,
second
okay,
floor.
so you go
That's
up the set
right.
of
That's right.
stairs.
The gym. You have to
I
go
go
up the
there every
stairs.
Saturday. Every Sunday, my grandson's playing
Okay.
sixth grade basketball team.
Oh, okay. I love basketball. But last fall, just before Thanksgiving, we inducted several people. The 97 and 98 state championship softball teams. Here are some of the inductees here.
Okay.
And the photo is courtesy of my friend Kim Duchamp, who I taught with for years. She was there because her sister was being inducted, Daphne.
nice.
So we have Courtney DeRosia, Westerdahl, class of 98. She was a three-sport athlete for volleyball, softball, and basketball. Daphne Page Harney, class of 98, softball and varsity field hockey. That's Kim's sister. Julianne DeVoe, class of 2003, gymnast, two-time Merrimack Valley Conference Gymnast of the Year. Karina Shepard, former student of mine, and she graduated from Dracut with 11 school records in track.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Jonathan Ryan, class of 2015, another student of mine who's also now a police officer here in Dracut. Wrestler, he's only the 7th wrestler in mass history to get 200 wins.
Wow.
And I'm not going through all of their achievements, those were just, you know. And there was another photograph, I think, of Kim and Karina. There's Kim
there you go.
and Karina Shepard. Yeah, that was a nice evening. And I want to just give thanks to the Hall of Fame committee this year. God bless you, Phil.
Thank
It
you.
was Jamie Dismaris, Bob Rudolph, Steve Talbot, Peter Witz, and Tim Koulis. So thank you for your work for organizing that event and doing that. It's every 2 years. So
Wonderful.
yeah, nice event. And we're going to be starting an alumni Hall of Fame for Dracut High School alumni.
Nice. That's nice.
Yes.
How,
So-
I mean, for things they do outside of
yes. Yeah.
within sports, correct? Or
No,
anything?
outside of sports. So this Hall of Fame is the Athletic Hall of Fame. We're going to be starting one for the alumni. So outstanding alumni, academics.
I very much like that because not everybody was involved in sports in high school, and I'm one of those people that wasn't really involved in sports. I was involved in a lot of stuff. I mean, I didn't go a semester without doing something. But then you later on you're relegated to, well, they have people, my classmates are getting inducted into
Yeah.
an athletic Hall of Fame, and it's like, well, there's nothing left for anybody else to
Right.
to
And
be
it-
recognized for their contributions.
Exactly, and it's good for the students to see what you can do after high school.
Absolutely.
What people do when they leave Dracut High School and go on to do. So that's in the.
Who's chairing that?
I'm not sure. It's going to be another organization like this, separate from the school committee or anything. Another like nonprofit.
Where are they gonna put their plaques? Would that go someplace in
yeah,
the library or something
no,
like that?
it's not going to be down in the library. I understand it's going to be off the main lobby, but
Okay.
it's still in the planning stages. But they'll have a wall just like they have
Oh,
for
good
the
for them.
athletic.
I
Yeah,
did.
I think it'll be a nice.
But that
nice-
also shows the students that you can do it from here.
absolutely.
You
Yep.
can do it from here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, much like the Varnum Award, there's a lot of interesting stories out there, and it's good to hear them
Absolutely.
and promote people from the community that
Yeah,
have
as an
that have gone
example to
forward.
say this is what you can do too.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. The Scholarship Foundation should be starting up, I believe.
Yes.
I don't know if
yeah.
you're involved with that.
I
at all?
had been previously. I'm not currently, but that's starting up. It'll be in March. The school committee always faces off against the
Right,
selectmen
so we'll
in
have-
some little game show, right?
Right, so we'll have the telethon will be hosted here. I think they'll be hosting it back at the school.
I think it's back at the school.
I know a number of years it was hosted
Yeah,
here.
because of
but-
COVID.
That was because
Yeah,
of COVID,
but,
though. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know DATV looks forward to kind of ramping up and getting it going.
Yes,
and-
it's a big event, 3
Yeah,
nights,
yeah.
you know? So, yeah, that's coming up
and
soon, too.
they've always done very well. They had, what, $165,000
Something like
last
that,
year?
yeah. It's remarkable what the organization does to give back to the students.
Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
and it's all
It's all volunteer.
it's all scholarships to Dracut High students.
Dracut High students, yeah.
And I only say that because
We've had that.
we've had a discussion about, well, if it's Dracut, it should be going to any Dracut student, even if they're outside of the district, essentially.
That's not the way they've done it.
It's not the way they've done
Not
it.
the way it
and,
is.
I find no fault in the way it's being done.
No,
so.
I have to admit,
It's-
neither do I.
It's a great community activity and event, and it really, I think it really helps the community come together and bind.
It does, yeah.
Another event that's coming up fairly soon is Dining Around Dracut.
Oh,
Rotary.
you know, I've never,
been
Well, you should.
I have never
You know
gone
why
to
you
dining
need to go?
around.
Because you're running for office.
Yeah,
You should go there. You should go there and mingle and use your, even bring your, if you don't have your signatures done.
yeah.
When is it, March 1st?
It's in the beginning of March. To be honest,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's way,
It's held by the Rotary,
It's a
Dracut
couple
Rotary.
weeks before you have to turn your papers in.
It's at Lindsay's, right?
It's at
Lindsay's.
Lindsay's.
I used to go every year.
Nice event. I mean,
everyone-
go with an empty belly.
Well, I would
because it's a
know.
lot of
I would
food.
know what things I liked. I would find the shrimp cocktail.
Yeah.
Go grab a pile of that. Right. They usually have the people who do those chicken pies. I forget
Harrow's.
Harrow's chicken
Oh, those
pies.
are good.
They-
I like Harrow's chicken pies.
Shaw's will have an ice cream
Yeah,
stand.
so there are a lot of local restaurants from Dracut, but it's not exclusively Dracut restaurants, so you'll get a number of different restaurants.
I do. Didn't
We had a
Primo's
barbecue place.
didn't Primo's do steak tips one year?
Primo's, Primo's,
They do good steak tips.
Primo's does have a booth there, and yeah,
And they're in Rotary too.
they are.
They're in Rotary. They're
They are
Rotary.
very good
they're-
people.
They're very nice people.
But highly recommended. We'll make sure that gets posted to the What's Happening Facebook page too,
Yeah.
to keep people informed.
Maybe I'll check it
But,
out this year.
you
I
have
say
to.
that. I say that every year.
I think a number of people may know that we belong to the Monday Night Dinner Club.
Yes, Monday
I
Night
would
Dinner
I
Club.
would suggest that week the dinner club
Oh, that's a
go to
good-
that event because you probably end up spending less money
Probably.
and you get to eat.
I think it's like if you
all
buy
sorts.
them ahead of time. It's like last year. I shouldn't quote it. I think it's around $20, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I mean for. It lasts for I think it's 3 hours.
And they
total,
open
but,
up the
there's a lot
back
of
room
food.
too.
Oh, nice.
So that you can go sit at tables because you just can't. You know, 3 hours standing on your feet for 3 hours is sometimes it's difficult, but
Yeah.
not if you keep walking around eating, right?
Well, there's a fair amount of walking to do there because you're constantly going to different booths. So they have appetizers, a category for appetizers, one for entrees, and then
Somebody
one
had
for
an
desserts.
unbelievable chowder that was really good and thick. I forget who it was,
I
but
wonder
it
if that
just
was the
but does
Boston Chowder Company.
Yep.
Sometimes I think that,
Oh, they're good.
things like that
Yeah.
will come in, and I know they've had quite a few vendors in the past.
I
Always
know
very well
Brothers
attended.
has a booth.
Brothers.
Brothers will do a booth. So most of the local people.
Heavenly Donuts,
Yep.
they have a booth.
And who, doesn't the Village Inn usually have a booth?
Village,
Oh,
yeah. the
I
Village
told
Inn
him
is
to bring
good.
a slab of his prime rib.
Prime
and-
rib.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would certainly encourage people to buy the ticket and.
And
plan
where
on
can they
going.
buy? Where can they buy the ticket?
They'll be
they-
advertised around town. You may
Yeah.
have some of the stores will carry tickets.
Okay.
You can do that. I think. Is it Eventbrite?
Dracut Hardware.
Oh,
had
okay.
them.
I've used
I
Eventbrite
believe
for
you
other things.
can.
I bet you get
they
them
have
at Primo's.
tickets
I bet
Maybe.
you
there.
she sells them
I
at
believe-
Primo's.
I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are a number of areas
Yep.
that you can get them. Eventbrite, I believe, is one that they're advertising right now because. I suppose is the initial first wave of selling tickets.
Right.
This is a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
And Rotary spends the money on their various charities, and
No,
Rotary's good
yeah,
about
that's a
that.
good
Yeah,
organization.
local.
They
Yeah.
do a lot. Yeah.
they have a fishing tournament for disabled kids.
I didn't know that.
And it's really, they go to some place out in Tingsboro, and they've been doing it for years. And one year, because my wife was in Rotary, I had to flip burgers there.
They
I
do-
don't get a choice when I get volunteered for things.
Is there anything else that we haven't discussed? I mean, we have about
I
3
don't
minutes
know.
left.
No, I don't think so.
You know,
We
if-
covered the sports is always important.
Yeah, well,
You know?
Super Bowl this
Oh,
Sunday.
yes.
Let's make
Super Bowl.
our picks. Go, Rebecca, go ahead. Now, you going to go with the point spread, or you just want to pick? I think it's 2.5. San Francisco's getting
Oh,
2.5.
See, I don't care because I bought my squares, so I care. I care if my squares win, so I don't really care.
Dude, you don't know what
on.
the score is yet.
Exactly, I don't know the score
Pick,
yet.
pick the game.
It's
pick
going to be
winner.
the Chiefs. Chiefs are going to win.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to the 49ers.
Yeah.
So-
this is the big dichotomy in pro football this year. I think San Francisco has a much better roster, but I think the Chiefs have a much better quarterback. But a quarterback, as much as a quarterback cannot do it alone. As Giselle Bundchen once said, he can't throw it to himself.
Well,
Yeah, but he has
Lamar
Kelsey.
Jackson.
Yeah, that happened. But where is he, Phil? He's on the
Yeah.
couch
I
like
know,
we are.
I
He's
know,
home.
I know. But I saw that posted to Facebook after it happened.
Because when they caught her on a hot mic talking about, I think it was Wes Welker dropping the ball
Yeah.
against the Giants that would have ended that
Right,
game.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, as people say, the Patriots blew 2 Super Bowls to the Giants, but they really got lucky in 2 other Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I mean, they came back on Atlanta 28-3.
Oh, that was-
They
Yes,
should never
that
have
was
done
a
that,
great
right?
one.
And then they the Butler interception.
Seattle.
Had they
That was
hand the
great.
ball off? We were at a friend's house.
We were at a
And
friend's
these guys
house.
are all, oh my God, it's over.
It's all
over.
Yeah, it
over. We're
was.
packing up the
I'm-
party.
I'm the only one. I'm the only one who said, I'm the only one who said
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not over.
It's-
They didn't score yet.
Yeah, are you going?
Because
everything
I've been in games where someone's on the 1 yard line. They try to jump over, hold the ball out. You slap it out of
Well,
their
yeah.
hands.
Well, look at what happened with the Celtics last year with Derek White. Did you see that? Against Miami to force a game 7. There was like half a second or something.
Really?
and then they
he
ended
could-
up losing this game 7 anyway to
Yeah, we
Miami.
ended up losing game 7
Well,
anyway.
but that's because I think Tatum got hurt in
Well,
the
yeah,
first quarter.
he rolled his ankle in the
Yeah.
first play. So
Yeah.
as soon as you saw that, you said, really, that's probably going to be it.
But
But
the Celtics are being very strategic now. Notice that now Drew Holiday's not playing. They say because he's got a sprained elbow.
Oh, it's
and then the other guy, they're rotating now.
Well,
they're
that's
starting
called-
to rest guys.
it's load management.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. Of course, there's rules against that now.
Right now, but that's why they're calling it an injury.
Right.
Like they say he has a sprained right elbow.
Right, because if you
And-
miss too
and
many
Brown-
games,
and
you're
Brown
not
was-
eligible
Oh,
for
okay.
Correct.
individual
And
awards.
Brown
like
was out
MVP.
the previous game for his back is a little sore. And then 2 days later, he's announcing he's doing the slam dunk.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for
Thank you, Phil. Well,
thank you for
for showing up
yes.
and helping me fill 90 minutes.
Well, we didn't even. Well, John, hurry back soon.
Yes,
because,
hurry back soon. John had
Because
an
we're
injury.
actually too nice here.
Yeah, John had an injury. He fell on. He
Yeah.
was kind of cross-checked and fell to
He
the
said- I
ice.
guess he-
Broke a bone in his elbow and his
Yeah.
shoulder. So
It was a bad-
he's healing very
Yeah, but
well.
he's looking better. He's actually nothing keeps him
absolutely.
down.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
still goes to hockey.
Yep.
He just coaches from the bench with his big mouth.
So thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
joining
Dracut.
us.
Thank you.
Remember that when it's Wednesday and it's 6:30, it's What's Happening Dracut. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.